couple things come to my mind. First off, back in December of 1999, my mom gave me the gift of life, which was admittedly pretty cool. And so, another thing that comes to my mind is a teddy bear I got, which I believe a picture of should be coming up shortly. But the reason it's, yeah, there it is. It's that, I got that the first Christmas after my cousin passed away, and that's made from one of his shirts. And that whole year and that Christmas were really hard for me, and it's coming back, so I'm going to skip through the whole spiel I had written about why that was hard and why that gift was so special. But basically, Christmas that year was rough, and that bear was kind of a silver lining. But I hear that question used as an icebreaker, or getting to know you so often, of like, what's your favorite gift you've ever received? And I never really had an answer because I couldn't pick one specific thing. But even if you're like me and you can't really pick an answer to that question, something comes to your mind, or multiple things. And that's because gifts are memorable, especially great ones. But when we get gifts, we're supposed to do something with them. If it's a hat or a shirt, you wear it. You don't just throw it in a closet and never wear it again, or think about it. In the case of this bear, it's sitting on a table on display in the living room of my home, right in front of the door, basically. It's one of the first things you see when you walk in the house. And we talked in a lot of chapels last semester about spiritual gifts God gives us and what those gifts look like and what they are. And our passage today talks about the gifts that God has given us and that we are to use them like we do with gifts, and that we are to be good stewards of them. And there are many ways to do that, but specifically, I want to take a look at what it looks like to use your gifts in your community. First, by learning to embrace and love your community, and then by going out and serving. So first, I'll take a look at what it looks like to embrace our community. 1 Peter 4:10 says, "Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms, to serve one another." We just had Christmas a few months ago, right? And a big part of Christmas is exchanging gifts with your loved ones. And I personally kind of like to think of our communities or cities or hometowns as a gift God has given us. Not a spiritual gift like the passage mentions or like we learned a lot about last semester, but more like a Christmas gift, because our communities are such a cool opportunity and mission field God has placed us in right here in close proximity. So if this is like a Christmas gift and it's a gift exchange, how do we give back to God for this? Well, we give back by learning to embrace our communities and seeing them as gifts and as the awesome opportunities and mission fields that they are. I love that things like Pioneer Bible Translators and ICOM are encouraged and pushed so well by the Christian community, and especially here at Central. But we need to be keeping that same energy with our local communities and hometowns, and a lot of times we don't. We fall into this mindset of our communities are just a geographical location where we are, or whatever it may be. And when we fall into that mindset, we forget and even ignore that our communities are this mission field and opportunity that are gifted to us by God. We were just talking about how we should be using gifts when we receive them, and gifts have a purpose and a use. And we can't be using them if we're forgetting that they're even gifts at all. Like Jonathan mentioned in the intro, and most of you probably know this, my hometown is St. Louis, and the reason you guys probably know that is because it's a part of who I am and it's something I'm proud of. And like any other city, it's had a lot of highs and lows over the years. I can think of a lot of high points. For example, in 2019, when the Blues won the Stanley Cup, not only cool because I'm a huge Blues fan, but it was just something that was cool to me to see an entire community rooting for this thing together. Even people who weren't hockey fans or sports fans I know were rooting for it. It was as united as I've seen the area before or since, honestly. But it's easy to love your communities in the highs. Today I want to take a look at one of, if not the biggest low points the area has faced in my lifetime, and how God kind of used that to show me how to embrace my community even more. Back in August of 2014, an incident happened in a town called Ferguson, which is like the next town over from where I live. And I'm not going to get into the incident itself because it's complicated, there's a lot of details, and it's easy to get bogged down in, and the incident itself isn't what's important. What I want to highlight is the aftermath that caused, which was as divided as I've ever seen the city. And for months going on afterwards, there was rioting, looting, people coming in from out of town just to participate in the destruction. The governor called the National Guard in at some point, I think. And at some point, both local and national news media got a hold of it. Yeah, there's an image that was probably from a news broadcast somewhere. And as you know how news is, it only tells part of the story. And so, not just Ferguson, but North County and St. Louis as a whole kind of developed a reputation over those months that wasn't entirely fair, it wasn't the whole story. And it was really discouraging for me to see, and it was really easy for me to get down about when I turned the TV on every night and images like this are on the news, seeing this area I love getting destroyed both physically and in reputation. And eventually I went and talked to my mom about it, told her how I was feeling, and I got the same advice I've gotten about 13 million times on who knows how many topics from her, and she said, pray about it. And I did. And the bad times didn't last forever. God re-energized me and put this thought in my head of wanting to be a part of the solution, and it has stuck with me ever since then. And August of this year will be 10 years since all that started. But looking at not just me, but the community, eventually you started to see murals painted on the boarded up windows. You saw people picking up trash or glass or destruction that had happened. And you saw people come together and build back stronger with a desire to improve together. And yes, some businesses or locally owned businesses even closed and didn't come back. But some did come back, and even some new ones came in. And Ferguson is stronger now than it probably was before that, because we learned from it, and people became united through that in a way. So you may be thinking, interesting story. So what? How does that apply to me? No matter where you are, every city and community has its highs and its lows, and the lows are more evident, and it's easy to get discouraged by them. There are so many ways the enemy can use to distract you or get you to neglect this battlefield that God has gifted you and given you. Whether it's a new area you just moved to and maybe it doesn't feel like home yet, or it's the same hometown you've always been in, but the low points and the problems just keep mounting up, and it's becoming hard to ignore, and it's discouraging you or killing whatever motivation you have. Pray about it. Ask God to give you a new mindset. Ask Him to teach you to learn to love and embrace your community and be a part of the solution. So we've talked about what it looks like to embrace our community. Now I want to move on to what it looks like to serve your community. 1 Peter 4:11 says, if anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. To Him be the glory and the power forever and ever. Amen. Guys, it's vital to have that mindset we just talked about of embracing and loving your community, but it's not very helpful unless you put it into action and go out and serve. Serving is a way we show God's love to others. It's a chance to get to introduce Jesus to someone for the first time. And that's the heart of why we serve, is to transform lives for Jesus. When we serve, it's transformational for all parties, both for the people we're serving, because they're having a physical, material need met, for us, because we're getting to build that new relationship and bond and get to learn how to better serve them, even going forward. But more importantly, serving is transformational because we get a chance to share Jesus and His good news with them. And for all we know, that could be the first time they're ever hearing it. I'm reminded of a class I took first half of last semester, taught by Bill Thomas, called Ministry and Diversity, and one of the quotes on his slides one day stuck out to me then, and it sticks out to me now, and it applies here. And what it said was, if we neglect to share this message, talking about the gospel, and neglect the transformational aspect, then the ministry has no eternal significance. A great example that comes to my mind of serving your community is something my home church, Christ First, or Church First, as Jonathan called it, which also has a good ring to it, does every year called Noel Project, which the way it works is that someone from church, I'm not sure who, but someone contacts a bunch of local schools in the nearby area, and the schools give the church names of families that are in need. And the way the church serves them is we invite them in on a Sunday morning and walk them, not only give them groceries, but then they walk into another room and there's tables labeled with ages small all the way through high school. And these families get Christmas presents for their kids that they get to pick out that they may or may not have gotten otherwise. And then there's a cool breakfast after that, and then the cool part to me is they're invited to service after that. They're invited to come be a part of the church family and worship with us and hear the news. And this is cool because it not only serves people, but it gets people involved in serving too. Because Noel Sunday is pretty much all hands on deck. You've got people organizing the volunteers, telling them where to go. You've got host families, which is really cool to me because the host families walk the Noel families through the whole process and path of everything. And that's a chance to get to build a bond and a connection. You've got people working the groceries and toy room, probably even more volunteer jobs I'm forgetting. But also, not just people volunteering their time, but volunteering resources, donating groceries and toys. Those things don't just appear magically, to my knowledge. But the point is, the church makes a point to serve the Florissant and the North County community by not only filling material needs, but inviting them into service to hear the best news they can possibly hear, which is the gospel. And like I said earlier, we have no idea if they're possibly hearing that for the first time or not. And you can even serve your community right here at school. Last semester, we saw the launch of the Bridge the Gap ministry. And in writing and preparing for this, I got to spend some time texting, so I was talking with the people that started that ministry, which is Rachel and Amanda. And it's such a cool story and a cool ministry they're doing. And it all started because Amanda wanted to start a nursing home ministry. And so she went and talked to Rachel, knowing that Rachel had worked in a nursing home before. And the heart behind this from both of them is that oftentimes residents of these homes can feel forgotten as they may or may not get visitors for whatever reason, and just life is so hard for them. I mean, imagine how you would feel. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm a pretty social person. So already getting up there in age, add some sort of ailment, and the fact that I may or may not be getting a ton of visitors, I would get lonely and get down quickly. And so what they do is this ministry goes and visits with these people and spends time just loving on them, pouring into them, showing them that they are loved and that they are important and that they do still hold value. And from what I've heard, these residents have let them know how much they are appreciated. And this is such a cool ministry right here at school, doing a really cool work and making a big impact on the people they serve and the community. And by the way, if you're interested in joining that ministry or going on those visits, talk to either one of them. I'm sure they'd love to have you. But this whole thing, this cool work they're doing, all started because one person had an idea and ran with it. All it has to take is one spark and it can start a fire. So the question is, how do we serve our community? And to be honest, the answer is, it depends. It depends on what passions God has placed on your heart, what causes He has made important to you. And for example, if you have a certain passion or cause on your heart, like feeding the hungry or homelessness, find a way to serve there. Volunteer at a shelter, donate to a food pantry. There are so many different ways you can serve your community. You just have to find the one that works for you and find the one God has placed on your heart. Acts 1:8 says that we are to be His witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And my charge to you today is this: in the midst of going to the ends of the earth, don't forget about your Jerusalem. Amen. I love all the different ways we have to do global ministry. And even here at school, we have 3 mission trips going out next month, and I'm so excited to hear how those go and learn about what happens on those. But there's so much work and ministry to be done in our own backyards that we can't forget about either. Use your gifts in your community. Like we said, there are many ways to use your gifts, but we need to make sure we're using them in our community as well as going out to the ends of the earth. First, by adjusting our mindset, learning to love and embrace our community and see it for the mission field and opportunity and gift that it is. Then we put it into action. We go out and serve by volunteering, donating, maybe something else. But the point is you take action, you do something. And by doing these things, we bring God's light to our cities and show God to our communities.